Hello, this is our new rooster. I want to name him George, but the kids don't like it, so he's unnamed at the moment. He's a lemon blue Araucana, and he's in quarantine right now because he has some mites. We just got him yesterday, and he has some medication now, but we cannot introduce him to the flock yet. See, we do it a little bit differently with chickens. With chickens, you keep the one that has the problem away from everyone else, and everyone else gets to run free and enjoy their life. With humans, we seem to do things a little bit differently. Do things differently, like not let them go fishing, etc. Yay, Nova Scotia! Today I want to discuss something that I feel a little bit strong about because there's that rooster. Hypocrisy and inconsistency, and talking with people, it seems to be the number one reason why people leave the church. And before we go on, I want to talk about a little bit of a difference between a biblical hypocrite and someone who is an inconsistent Christian. So a biblical hypocrite is let's back up a little bit. Jesus in Matthew chapter 6, he talks about the hypocrite as being someone who gives money in order to be seen by men, by other people, doing things, acting. The word translates into a stage actor or a pretender. So someone who is pretending, and someone who's doing things just so that people think good of them, instead of giving or doing these things from the heart. However, an inconsistent Christian is someone who believes something, believes that what they're doing is wrong, admits to it, doesn't hide it or try to make appearances of being perfect, but he does not have the victory over what he's struggling with yet. And strangely enough, and interestingly enough, even though they're very closely tied together, and in our dictionary we do tie them together, but it's a little bit of a difference, and it might help with some of these people who've called hypocrisy something that it isn't really intended to be. The modern definition is, and I'll read it here, a feigning to be what one is not, or to believe what one does not, or a behavior that contradicts what one claims to believe or feel. And so I didn't know if you caught it there, but we've blended both of those biblical definitions into one definition for the word that we have as hypocrite. Not that they're completely exclusive from each other; they are fairly closely related, but one pretends and one doesn't pretend, and that's a little bit of a key difference. He kept crowing and crowing and crowing, so I thought I would put him in the shot and see if he was camera shy and would stay a little bit more quiet. Everybody has run into someone who will act a certain way, and then in church usually, and then they're a completely different person. And this happens a lot more than I wish to admit. When I was going to one of our denomination's universities, we had Christian young people who would be singing in the choir and preaching and doing all sorts of things like that. And as soon as Saturday night came around, they were indulging in some of the activities that they had condemned and pretended not to do. And this is quite damaging, because it's pure confusion to people when you see somebody saying something and then acting completely contrary to what they say they believe. It's confusion. They are told, or they should be told, that there is victory over sin in Christ. But then they'll see hypocrisy and inconsistency in someone who is a longtime Christian. And it can get to the point where it overwhelms them. Or another thing that happens is everybody hides what they are struggling with, and the young Christian will see the fake perfect life and gives up because in their mind they can never be as good as the people around them. And I've heard people say that, which is why I bring it up. And we kind of bring it around to sin being like eating chocolate cake. And unfortunately, I've heard that exact example. Instead of using real examples and real struggles, everybody wants to paint themselves with a better brush, and yeah, these things happen. But let's break down the biblical cure. You see, Christians preach that we should be like Jesus. And in fact, in John chapter 15, it talks about, Jesus says that if we abide in him as a branch abides in the vine, we will have our character changed and we will bear good fruit. And okay, so what is good fruit? Good fruit, according to Galatians 5:22, I'll read it here. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. That is, our sinful nature. It's crucified. And if we live in the Spirit, we should also walk in the Spirit. And let us not be conceited, provoking one another, or envying one another. So we have a list of character traits that reflect the life of Christ and his character as it's written in the Bible. And then we have a lot of Christians who are supposed to be abiding in Christ, just as the branch receives from the sap from the vine, so we are to receive life from Jesus and that character change. However, we unfortunately don't see a lot of Christians with a Christ-like character. And you might ask, well, why is that? Well, the answer is... You talking? Huh? Shh. Because they are not themselves abiding with Christ as they should be. You see, if we were studying his life and allowing the Spirit to work, if we were studying his life and allowing the Spirit to work these changes in us, then we would be becoming more Christ-like, and we wouldn't be putting on this act that we are perfect. But unfortunately, that's not usually the case, because we see a bunch of people who are full of bitterness and gossip, and these people have no authenticity, and it causes damage. So 2 things I want to leave you with. First thing, and it's probably one of the most important aspects of the relationships we have with other people, and that is the mindset that you need to protect yourself from other people's hypocrisy and inconsistency. And that mindset is and should be that your relationship with God should not be based or influenced by someone else's lack of relationship with God. Don't give other people that much power. And the second point is that you are probably a hypocrite yourself, or inconsistent in more than one thing. You're not perfect. Don't expect other people to be perfect. Instead, understand that we have issues, they have issues. Forgive them, pray for them. They may not have experienced grace, and grace is, my favorite definition of grace is the divine influence upon the heart. So it's the influence that God himself has on the heart that changes people. And it changes the very core of who we are when we have that abiding relationship with Christ, when we are receiving the life-giving sap, so to speak, His love, His grace. And this, of course, is the cure for inconsistency and hypocrisy, all wrapped up in one. So I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.